All right, everyone, welcome to our monthly webinar. We sort of missed the last month or postponed it a few weeks. So this counts as our October, November webinar. And we will have another event in December, which is our annual State of Lien Law presentation, where our CEO and our COO and everybody involved in the company will present the direction of what our plans are for next year and take stock of this year. So watch out for an invite if you haven't seen it already for the next event, which is should be fun. Well, but here we are in our sort of masterclass, and today's topic. What are we talking about today, Chase?
We are talking about reports.
Okay. We're also talking about having just moved into a new office. I haven't quite decorated mine yet, but Chase is doing way better.
It looks like he's on another world, but it is right there.
I am Fred Willerup, CTO and co-founder of Lien Law. Chase, what is your role here?
This month, I am the customer success manager.
Excellent. So we'll talk about reports. Chase will lead that. Hopefully you'll learn some more about, you might have used reports already, but I'm thinking that most of you probably will see some things you haven't noticed before, something useful, hopefully. Feel free to ask questions, or I would strongly encourage you to ask questions during this in our Zoom call here, and we'll normally just respond to them sort of during the flow of the conversation here. If we do not get to your question, we will absolutely get to it afterwards, but we get through most of the questions in kind of our live session. Mm-hmm. At the end of this, I'll spend some time presenting some new features that we have introduced in the last month or two. Just some little quality of life things and some exciting things. So that comes after the main event here, or the main topic. Sound good? Do you want to kick us off, Chase?
Yep, I think we can do that. Yeah. Let's share my screen real quick, and we will jump into. Oh, hey, they let me share a portion of the screen now. Let's try that. There we go. How's that look, Fred?
Looks great.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you for the introduction, Fred. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This month's product masterclass, like Fred introduced, is reports. Go ahead and go through the topics now. So we're going to be covering monthly billing, collecting payments, compensation, and business activity, or overall, firm reporting. And the way we kind of structured this, Fred and I were talking, well, why don't we go through kind of a day in the life of reporting in Lien Law, or a day in the life of someone who's using Lien Law, and what kind of reports or workflows would they be looking for to use reporting with. So that's kind of the whole spiel today, or whole shtick today. Go ahead and switch over to our Lien Law here. Do a new share. There we go. And there we go. Okay, so before we jump into Lien Law, I actually wanted to take a quick moment to go over the fantastic article that Doug, who is the master of product releases, I don't remember his official title. He's the lovely lad that writes all of our documentation now and releases it to make it accessible and usable for us, which is fantastic. He has done a phenomenal job of writing up a huge overview of all of the reports in Lien Law, and I'm not kidding, all of them, with a pretty extensive explanation of how they all work, links to them, what they're used for. So if you haven't looked at this, absolutely recommend it. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody to take a peek at while we go through today. And with that, I'll go ahead and start in on reports. Okay, so the first thing is we're talking about monthly billing. We're generating our time entries, we're generating expenses, right? And this might not be what you're doing, but this is what the firm's day-to-day is, right? Tracking time. So Fred and I were thinking, well, the first thing in that process for reporting goes probably looks like ready to bill or the WIP report. So we'll go over here to the report section up top and ready to bill / WIP. There we go, by client. Now you might notice this report here, ready to bill, looks an awful lot like the ready to bill page in billing. Take a gander over there. Looks pretty familiar. That's because it is. However, this report, the ready to bill report, offers quite a bit more insight into those clients and matters than what you would normally get on the ready to bill page within billing. So you'll notice we've got columns here for ready to bill hours, expenses, fixed fees. Great. We already have that. What's so special here, Chase? Well, the last couple, receivables balances, the last payment, and trust balance, and evergreen if you use that. The whole point of reports is to give insight into the firms, into the firm, something you don't normally see, connecting some dots that you wouldn't normally connect on your own. And so that's why by looking at this ready to bill report before you jump into your monthly invoicing, you're able to get an overview of how your clients are actually doing, right? Do they have a trust balance? Have they been paying? Do they have open AR with that receivables balance column, right? So some firms are, I do know that some firms will run that ready to bill report for each responsible attorney. So using that filter over here, the responsible or the originating. So instead of having to, print the screen on that billing page, you can actually just jump in here, run this report. We'll say all of the matters I'm responsible for, just one, and then print that off and send that off for review. Fred, is there anything? I do notice there's that reviewer checkbox. Do you want to talk about that, or should we hold off?
No, not at this point.
Okay, great.
I want to just add that if you look at a few more here, that like one example of how this is useful is we can see that we have stuff to bill for Coastal and for McKinnon. I can barely see what it says there, and some others. So there's like we can, if we run this before our invoicing, we can see which ones are have invoices coming out. But if we take a look at Joyful, for example, they have an opening balance. And so we can see on this report that we should probably send them a reminder because there's not an additional invoice coming out for this month that would contain the reminder. So so that's helpful. So just where we can use this.
Where do we send that reminder from? Is that something we do in
Well,
Lien
we're
Law?
going to get into that in a moment.
So like Fred said, sending reminders for those outstanding balances with for clients that don't have any new activity. So next up is the trust report. So kind of related to the trust balance here. Whoops. So the number we're seeing here is pulled from the trust balance for that client. Now, if we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what the trust activity actually looks like for that client, we would go ahead and open up the trust. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. Trust report under accounting here. Trust report. So kind of in a similar vein to that ready to bill report where we're checking it before we start invoicing, the trust report gives you, again, some insight into what's going on in the client's account. And specifically, the one I want to focus on is the trust to WIP column here. So this is the percentage of trust funds that the client has available compared to what they have in ready to bill. Or I believe it also includes account balance, does it not, Fred?
No.
Okay, does not. So it is just WIP as it suggests and trust. So you'll notice here that first one, Vera Mears, the trust to WIP is negative. That's because we've got a negative trust balance there. If we drop down to Jackie Ratton, the third one down, you'll notice we've got a trust balance of a little over 16,000, but the ready to bill is over 74,000. So we're actually only covered 22% of what she has in WIP with that trust account. So that kind of informs us the possible risk that we have with that client, that we're only 22% covered, right? That we don't have the ability to, they don't have the ability to fully pay, and heaven forbid the client doesn't pay. This is what we're left with. This is what we'll actually make out of it. Fred, anything there on the trust report?
Yeah, so with the again, sort of in the day of the life of your firm, getting ready for billing, this is quite often some places you would look, the ready to bill report, the trust report, to make sure that and the type of decisions you'll make here is like, well, maybe we need to take another retainer, a filling up retainer from this client or that client, if there's a little too much risk for certain clients here.
Yes. Excellent.
There's a question from Lee here, is asking if you can freeze the column headers. We actually have started to update reports so that they do freeze, but it's not been done on all reports. So Chase, if you want to like just have a quick look into another report, the let's say the WIP build collected report. That's not.
I clicked on ready to bill after. There we go. WIP build collected.
And the client one, so we can scroll.
You're right. Let's do that one. There we go.
Now, if you make your window a little smaller, we can see here how hopefully we.
There we go.
Yeah. So we have this is what we'd like all reports to do, because we realize it's annoying to follow along without having those headers there. Mm-hmm. So thanks for that question. Yeah, let's keep going, Chase.
Sweet. Let's see, where were we? So we were just talking about the trust reports and how that can help us assess some of the risk that we take on. Kelsey, real quick, what does WIP stand for? Work in progress. And Tracy's typing that out, but work in progress. So we've got like WIP detail, WIP build collected. You can think of it similar to ready to bill. What is currently not billed? So next up is the collections section. So in our example here, we have done our monthly invoicing. We have submitted those invoices to the client, and now we want to collect on that. Now, ideally, all of your clients are going to pay within a moment of getting that invoice, but that's not always how it works. So we need to stay up to speed, really, on the collections of those invoices. And so that's where the receivables reports come in. So we've got here under the accounting, in the middle, we've got receivables. There we go. Now, Fred, why would someone want to look at the receivables report?
I thought you were going to tell us that, but
surprise.
No. Well, let's see. So so we didn't used to have this report actually, and because you could get to it from QuickBooks, so
yes,
you can get this exact information in QuickBooks. But of course, not everybody in the firm has access to QuickBooks, so you can get it here. It's the same data, more or less, that you can see here. The cool thing about having it in Lien Law is that then each attorney in your firm or partner can look at just their clients. And you can have, different firms work differently, but if they're responsible for the collections for their clients, you can go in here and they'll see their matters and clients in here. So it's sort of a standard receivables report with the account balance showing and then the aging information there. And so when you have clients that have a lot of aging, like Jackie Ratton down there, you might consider writing that off. But for other clients, you know, this is just a helpful place to see how you can, you know, who you need to remind to send out reminders to. And if we click into somebody like McKernan, maybe.
There we go. Yep.
Here. We did expand on this also fairly recently, where we're now able to kind of drill in and see all the invoices and the detail of when they were due and the balances and so on. And then also we have some functions here on the right with the triple dots.
There we go.
That allow you to send a, you know, view the invoice and so on, but also send a reminder email. This just tells QuickBooks to resend the invoice. So it doesn't, we don't yet have any sort of feature here to like add a note or anything. We basically just, the client will get another copy of that invoice with as a reminder, but this is an option we have.
So like Fred mentioned earlier briefly, this is one of the reports in Lien Law that takes data that you already have in QuickBooks. You know, if you are an accountant, you can already get this, right? Why would we add this? Well, it gives the attorneys, usually the partners or higher up attorneys in the firm, the ability to take responsibility for their clients, right? If they have access to this report, they can filter down to say the matters that they're responsible for. And you can say, oh, well, I don't have any. Let's take a look at Frederick Taylor. Anyways, you can say, hey, Frederick, you've got a whole bunch of clients with open account balances, and here's your report. You need to go contact them, whether that's the user using the built-in, you know, send email, whether that's an email that they send or a phone call or they go next door, that enables the users to really take ownership. I know we have a couple of firms where the attorneys do their own billing and some of the AR work. This is perfect for that type of situation, or in smaller firms too, where it is just, you know, 2 or 3 attorneys running the whole show. This gives you a lot of information that is actionable, easily actionable, to go chase down your open AR.
There's a question from Alicia asking if there's a way to see just the part of the AR that they originated. And I think depending on what you mean here, we either have this or we don't. One way to interpret this is that you simply you can see this list of clients and the AR for those clients for just the matters that you have originated by just using the standard filter on the left where you click originating. And anything that Frederick originated is now listed there. Now, this is still the total AR. So I think you were probably asking a different question. And we are not working on a way to show just the piece of that AR that you might have origination against. So, so I think that hopefully answers the question. Otherwise, please follow up.
Got another question from Jackie. When you send an invoice and want to send a reminder after the 30-day past due notice, how do we track the date that we send the reminder notices? I don't believe Lien Law actually keeps track of that. Is that something QuickBooks keeps track of?
Yeah, we don't have, you know, we have a few little features like the one I highlighted where you can resend invoices and so on. But anything related to reminders and so on has to, it takes place in QuickBooks. And they actually have built in fairly limited functions in terms of automated reminders and all this stuff. I don't think Chase or I are experts here, but we can maybe follow up with people we know that know more about this. So we will look into this question and get back to you. But there's nothing in Lien Law that does this. It's all in QuickBooks, that piece.
Correct. Tracy's around, she might know, but other than that. Oh, there we go. Email reminders can be set to automatically send back out after a certain number of days. This is why we pay Tracy the big bucks. Okay, Fred, we have gone over collecting payments and getting paid for reporting. Next step is compensation, the distribution of those funds, paying our people. Everybody loves payday. That's what we're going to talk about, and specifically the compensation reporting. Now, you and I were talking back and forth, and we kind of determined there's kind of two situations for this. Situation one, where the attorneys don't have visibility to their own compensation. And the second situation where attorneys do have visibility into their compensation. And yep, answering that live. That's why we've got two compensation reports. So you'll notice up top here, under the by user dimension, there's compensation. And that's the second situation where they don't have visibility to their own compensation. And then the first situation where they do, you have the my compensation under my reports. So real quick, for anyone who's not familiar, my reports is a section of reporting that will only show you data that you're responsible for or that you generated. Fred, did I get that right?
Yeah, I think let's maybe get back to that. Let's talk about what compensation reports actually are and start there.
Well, let's take a look. And let's do October. There we go. There is no compensation for things that Frederick Taylor originated. There we go. So, Fred, what am I looking at here? Just real quick, one sentence.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be a long sentence.
One sentence. You've got one sentence to make it work.
So for a given time period, October 2021 in this case, we are looking at all the payments for that period distributed out to the people who worked and originated and contributed in other ways to invoices that those payments were for. And the end result of that is the adjusted share, which is how much I'm going to get paid that month. That's a paragraph of a sentence right there.
Now, if you missed, I believe we covered this 2 months ago. We talked about compensation, where we delved into how these numbers are actually calculated. But as Fred said, the gist of it is how much each user is receiving based on payments that were received for previous invoices, or based on invoices, or based on received payments. Adjusted share is the actual take home. That's after things like expenses, origination have been taken out. If we wanted to dive a little bit deeper here, we could click in and check out some details on specific clients, then look at specific payments and actually go all the way down to the specific allocation for each of those payments. So if you're trying to figure out who is getting paid how much and why, a whole lot of tools here for you to dive in and do that. Jump back out here. Now, this is a firm-wide report, right? I mentioned earlier, if we, in that first situation, no, the second situation, where attorneys do have visibility to it, because oftentimes this report is not available to attorneys, your paralegals, your timekeepers, anyone who's not, running the bills or receiving those payments. Some firms choose not to have their attorneys or users, they choose not to give them access to this. But you can give, the reason is because they don't want them to have access to firm-wide payment structures for whatever reason. But the attorneys still want to know what their compensation actually is going to look like at the end of the month. And that's why we have this My Compensation report, which is the same thing. It's just specifically focused in on what the logged in users data is. So you'll notice before, when we drilled into my name, there was only one client. Now here, it's as if we did that, but this is all that I have access to now, is just that one client, where I can jump in and still see the same information, that allocation detail. There we go. But it's only my information.
Let's take a quick look at, there is some permission settings here that affect this particular thing, and it might be a good chance for us to review that. If you go to settings and permissions, user permissions.
There we go.
And then open up the reports area here. You can see that you can control the different roles have access to, well, the reports tab in the first place, but then individual pieces of it. And so if your firm does not want users to see the whole compensation picture for the firm, but only their compensation, you can uncheck the revenue by attorney report for maybe paralegals and attorneys, and leave it on for principals and operators. That way, those users can only see their revenue or their compensation and not compensations for the whole firm. So this just is one example of how you can control some access to some of this information out here. So if you're not aware of this option, you can play around in here and open and close things up for types of users right here.
Excellent context there. So that's that. Fred, can we talk about the distribution feature real quick? I know that has come out in the last couple of months.
We have time to. We don't have to do it like super fast. We have time.
Okay, so real quick, you might have noticed on the left side here with the filters, there is a distribution option. What does that mean? What are these? I believe it's enabled actually for most firms now, isn't it?
Yeah, this is generally available. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So the way we access these is by going to the distribution tab here within billing. So right next to trust account. There we go. And we see some of these that we've set up. Now, distributions are, and Fred, jump in if I get this wrong, because I'm still learning this. Distributions are where you collect all of the payments for a certain time period and then put a label on them. So the example being like if we received a whole bunch of payments for September invoices, but some came in November, and we only wanted to look at the distribution for those September invoices, we could bundle all of those payments together and call it September. That way, instead of using the time period filter that might miss something that we received outside of that time period, we can focus on that specific distribution. Is that right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I can say it slightly differently, but it was exactly right. But the idea here is that, you know, there was one client we worked with, one of our favorite clients. Well, we don't have favorites, do we, Chase?
I mean,
but we had this issue that the compensation reports fell on month boundaries. So we would look at September, for example, and then, you know, look at the compensation, and they would use these reports to pay the partners and attorneys of the firm. Except more often than not, there might have been a very large payment that came in just early that month. So we're distributing September, but maybe the 1st of October, we had a large payment that we couldn't wait distributing. So we want to include it in the September distribution. So this feature allows you to collect, kind of put package payments up for distribution into packages that then remain constant, and that don't fully fall on monthly boundaries. You can also have use this to maybe you want to distribute every other month or twice a month, or you might have in some cases special distributions, again because very large payments come in. And it's not like we want to wait a month to distribute a very large payment to the attorneys that worked on it. So it just gives you the flexibility in the reporting here. And so, yes, Chase showed in here, I don't know if we're going to show any of that, probably not, but you use this page to create distributions and update them. And then over on the report section, instead of picking a time period, you pick a distribution, and they're all here sort of named, as you can see from from the month, even though they might not be exactly the payments for that month. And when we pick this, the time period sort of grays out. So you can kind of see here that this report either works by a time period or by picking a distribution.
Yep.
If you use this report, I strongly recommend you go down the distribution path as opposed to just try and use time periods for this.
Yes.
And we're actually, right now, we're working on a feature to lock distributions. There's an issue if you start updating your actually this can give us a just peek into the settings behind this report, Chase, if you don't mind. So you can find this under reports here. So this is where you can set origination percentages and various things. Now, if these change over time, I mean, if you update this 10% to 15%, for example, it's going to update all the numbers in that report, even back in time.
Yep.
But we're working on locking up distributions. If you have distributions, it will freeze the settings that you used when you created it, so that you can safely update some of these numbers, and then it won't affect the old distribution reports. So anyway, that was a long long speech, but hopefully that makes sense to some of you.
If you want the abbreviated version to follow along after the call, I actually just posted the again, thank you, Doug, the support article on how these work and how to use them. So if you're interested and haven't tried them yet, I suggest checking that out. Okay, Fred, after distribution, the last thing I want to talk about as far as compensation goes is actually the productivity report. So in some situations, the compensation of the firm or for certain users might not use the compensation report at all. For example, if your firm has paralegals or timekeepers that aren't compensated based on the time they're entering, say because they're entering time for their attorneys, how do we figure out how to pay them? Well, you might consider using the period reports. Nope, not period reports, that's later. Productivity, where'd that go? Here it is, under the by user dimension. There we go. So the productivity or timekeeper productivity is essentially a report of the actual work done by each individual user. So regardless of where the time was sent or allocated for revenue purposes, this shows us who's actually working on it. And Fred, I believe this does not go by the time entry, or excuse me, by the timekeeper on the entry. It's based on who created it.
No, it's the time entries and the users on the time entries. So this shows you how much I have tracked time and so forth. We can talk about some of the detail here. Yeah, if I had to put it slightly differently, Chase, it would be that the compensation report might not work entirely off the time you spent, because we have options to allocate maybe timekeepers time to the attorney instead, and so on. Right. So that report will not reflect it. Here you can find the actual time spent, and so you can maybe use this for compensation or other purposes. Exactly.
Something else here too is actually the write down column, which has two different values. One is the numeric value, or the dollar value of time that was written down, and the percentage of overall time that was written down. So we can see for Courtney Harrison has written down $487.50, which makes up 25.8% of her overall time from that period.
Yeah, so this kind of gets us into kind of the next topic, which is like analyzing how your firm is doing and how your people are doing. And so this is one example that we can segue into from there. If you click on the write down to sort it, in reverse. Oh, okay, that's good. We need to sort by percentage. I need to go fix that. Well, the idea here is that you can see immediately that Courtney clearly has a problem, that she tracks a bunch of time, but it keeps getting written down. So something must be not quite right in terms of how she's spending that time, or I don't know what it might reflect, but this is an interesting flag. And then the rest of the users here maybe look reasonable or not, depending on what you're looking for. But that's just one example of quick tool to see how your users are doing for a given month. Maybe you're just looking at billable hours instead. So you can sort this by, I guess we're clicking into her here.
Yep.
You can sort it by billable hours and have a quick. It looks like a lot of people are using our reports right now, huh?
It's like we're talking about reports right now, and everyone's like rushing to generate them.
So if we sort this by billable hours, we can see that there's some people working more than others, and there might be reasons for this. This obviously is a test account, so the data makes less sense. But
are there even 600 hours in a month?
Well, this month, so just the first few days of this month. No.
Okay, then definitely not 600 hours. We're 13. We're 10 days into this. Come on, Fred. Frederick, not Fred.
Anyway. So yeah, Chase, back to you, I guess.
Yes, the transition over to the overall firm reports and business health. So we were talking about we were concerned that Courtney has a about 26% write-down percentage, which gets us into like firm administration reports, or overall, how the firm is actually doing. So in addition to the timekeeper productivity report, there's also the fixed fee profitability report, which if any of you are using fixed fees at all, you should be familiar with. And if you aren't, we're going to learn. Now, the fixed fee profitability report, we did get asked before we had this, how do I know if my fixed fee, the time that we're spending on fixed fees, if it was, how could we compare what we charge for the fixed fee versus the time we invest in it and the value of that time? So would it have been more profitable to actually bill hourly instead of based on that fixed fee, which is exactly what this fixed fee profitability report was built to do. It is meant to compare those two values. So like I said, if you're using any kind of fixed fee, especially contingency, this is something you want to be familiar with. It, like I said, just to reiterate, it informs you, was the fixed fee just as or more profitable than the hourly time we spent. We notice here, Coastal Motors, my goodness, $1,000 worth of fixed fee charges, but the value of the time tracked against that fixed fee is over $42,000. So we got to reevaluate the agreement we have with Coastal Motors, because we're losing a lot of money by billing them a single $1,000 fixed fee instead of going hourly. Now, most of your examples aren't going to be this drastic, charging $1,000 but having a value much higher. But this does give you excellent insight into, are you actually making a profit on those fixed fee billables? Fred, anything you want to add here?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions? Probably not on fixed fee profitability. This one, luckily, is quite straightforward. I did want to talk real quick about some of the restructuring that Fred and his team did on reports. It's been a couple of months, so you should be familiar, but just for anyone who has been a little report shy, I wanted to talk about the organization of these reports. So you'll notice by client matter, by user, by responsible, and by practice area look pretty similar. And that's because they actually are all pulling from the same cluster of data. These categories, or dimensions as we call them, actually just give you the ability to filter. If you're a literature nut at all, you might be familiar with the term lens. but it gives you a different way to view that same information. So if we wanted to look at our billables by client and matter, has different functionality than if we wanted to look at it by responsible. Lee's got a question. Why would the fixed fee value show as 0? Tracy's already on that. Oh, I can't even read the questions. She finishes them so quickly.
Well, everybody else can benefit from it. So if you go back to fixed fee profitability,
yeah,
just to kind of depart slightly here. So there was a question: why is there 0 on a fixed fee charge in here somewhere? Or maybe it was in your account. Well, the fixed fees refer to the matter billing type. So if you go to, so this report will only show a client if it's marked as a fixed fee matter. Now you can actually have fixed fee charges against hourly matters, but they won't appear here. And you can have a situation where you have no fixed fee charges against a fixed fee matter, which is kind of weird. But that would explain why there isn't a fixed fee here. Could also be just a question of filtering. Quite often, when you don't see something you expect, check your filters is probably a very
I love that one.
So, the time period, or, whether you're looking at archived or not, you can see it says exclude archive. So that doesn't include archive matters, et cetera, et cetera. So we have, we chose not to go into too much painful detail about all the different filtering options and so on that we have. But I just want to say that that's obviously critical to get the right data out there.
So like I was mentioning before, these different dimensions are pulling from the same group of information. So what that allows us to do is not just look at the face value of, how much was billable from Chase this month, but allows us to, if we kind of change our frame of reference, we can actually look at these reports in a different way to get like a temperature check on how the firm or the company is actually doing. So a couple examples of that. One would be productivity, like we were just looking at earlier. You can use that for yearly or quarterly reviews on how much time people are actually working, right? You can see that, like we were looking at earlier with Frederick, has 600 hours within the first month. But if we adjust that to look at, say, by time, or by, this year, we could set a custom period for the quarter. I was working with someone earlier who was doing that. We're looking at quarterly productivity. You can get a sense for employee performance, which in my experience isn't something that firms typically do, but I'm also not running a law firm. Another example of this would be the WIP build collected.
We do need to talk about your performance, Chase. I've just put a little reminder on here. Carry on.
You can come talk to me whenever you want. I'm just one wall away. Next up is the WIP build collected report. That can be used to see how profitable a client has been over a certain period of time. So if we go the by client and matter and take a look at WIP build collected. So instead of looking at this from a perspective of, how much are we going to be billing them, you can do some sorting here and take a look at, over the course of, let's say, a quarter again, who are our most and least profitable clients? Should we reevaluate that, maybe some of these clients we can kind of trim the fat, and we're spending more time on these clients that aren't as profitable, and we want to instead focus on those bigger clients that bring in higher revenues. Another example of this would be the collected by responsible. Jump over to that. So responsible and then collected. Change that time period to, this is fine. Collected by responsible to see which partners are contributing the most to the revenue for each firm per month. So based on what we would see here with multiple responsible attorneys, we could see that Heather has been the most profitable this month, as opposed to Fred and I, who aren't even on the board this month. See, you start to pick up trends on who's bringing in more profitable clients and who's not, based on, again, that responsible, but really who's collecting on it, not just who's bringing them in. And last,
I think we,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think let's just finish with the period report, I think,
Yep.
and then
finish with the
Great.
biggest one that definitely is the biggest sandbox as far as reports go. You'll notice this has way more filters than anything else, which is awesome, but also a little bit daunting. This gives you super flexibility on the example. What I say to users when they ask how to use this is I suggest coming into this with a question, trying to think of it almost as a custom report for Lien Law. You have the ability to change what you're grouping by, so clients, users, and practice area, the date, of course, but also the reporting metric. So you can go by hours, by billed, by expenses, by adjustments, by, I think I already said collected, hours tracked, the value of the hours, right? And so you can kind of choose your own adventure, build your own report to look at these different options over different periods of time. So you'll notice up top here, we've got January, February, March, April. It allows you to look at changes over periods of time. So we can see right now, what is this? We're looking at billed total by client. So each month we can see, oh, we billed Coastal Motors 7,000, 22,000, 7,000, as opposed to a client like Mitchell here, who we have billed $25 to. Might need to reconsider the work we're doing with Mitchell. So again, super powerful report here for looking at change over time. So if you want to get geeky with the numbers, highly suggest looking into this one. All right. So keep those questions rolling, but I'm going to actually toss this back over to Fred to talk about what's new and what's upcoming in the product, because engineering has been very busy.
thank you, Chase.
Anytime.
Let me share my screen. I believe it is this one, I'm hoping.
Hey, very nice.
So just a note on reports again to kind of wrap up and think ahead a little bit. One thing we're getting a fair amount of feedback on reports is that even though we have a bunch now that give you the data you need, it's not always at your fingertips. You have to keep adjusting a filter, and then you click away and click back, and now you set the filters again. Or we want to put some effort into making them easier to use. Have favorites where you can kind of bookmark reports, and the filters will stick. And also, there's some performance issues, to be perfectly honest, on several of these reports that make them less usable for especially those of you who have a lot of data in the system. So if those are pain points that you have, I have heard them, or we have heard them, and we will be working on them. If you have other things on reports that you would like to see, we have been very responsive here. I think I can say in terms of clients needing an extra column, an extra report, and so on. It's actually not that difficult for us to update these with new reports and new data. So let us know what you need.
Okay, Fred, time entry.
Time entry.
You guys have changed a whole lot, and people are already asking me questions about what's going on here.
Okay. I'm not sure what specifically the questions are, but I was gonna talk about a couple of time entry updates we did recently. There are several places you can do time entry from this page here, also from the calendar, from our mobile app, and from our desktop app. I'll just start here. One thing we did is we implemented something called block billing, which if you know what that is, you should know how to use this. It allows you to type in hours as you put in the description. So if I say, red document, and then I put in square brackets, 0.2, closing square brackets, You can see here that the hours updated as I type. So I put in semicolon, write another document. I'm gonna put in 0.3. Now my hours said 0.5. Coffee break. I'm gonna charge the client, you know, an hour for that.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
That's like 8 coffees.
So we have block billing implemented where you can type in hours along with your time entry description, and the hours are calculated automatically so that, you know, when, you know, let's say I had picked the client here ahead of time. As soon as I'm done typing, I can just click create entry and I'm done. So you don't have to fiddle around and with the hours and so on. Just note that you have to use square brackets for this to work. So that's that feature. It's also available in other places like on the calendar here where you enter time here. It's not available in the desktop tracker yet, but we're just about to release that. So if you're typing away in the desktop tracker and it isn't working, wait a few days and it might start working then. So we'll announce when this is implemented. The other thing we have implemented for time tracking is, and I don't recall announcing this last time, it's been in here for a little while, it is shortcodes. So if you go to the snippets here on the calendar page, or they're also in settings under snippets and shortcodes, you can now associate a, let's say here, sorry, this account is a little messy. Anyway, I'll add a new snippet up here. Red document, RD, so submit. I now have that snippet saved. I can go to a time entry, create that. If I put in RD space, it'll put in the text for that. So you can create shortcodes for snippets now, and you can use them as shorthands when you type in time entries. I think, let's see. Oh, we have another little, I think I'm going to skip this. We have another few smaller features around time entries that hopefully you like. Running a little low on time here, I'm going to zip through a couple of things. One feature we have announced is what we call auto assign. It gets a little tricky to explain, but let me give it a shot. Some of you have this option set for all your users, which includes those users on all your matters. This is kind of a bummer because maybe I'm working on a matter, or maybe I'm only working on 10 matters out of the 100 that are in the system. And so I keep seeing all those other 100 ones. So ideally, I don't want to check this for most users, but I only want under each matter here, under billing and rates, I only want to list the users that are actually working on a case. And so that way, when I go, you know, look at stuff, and anyway, it just keeps it simple and straightforward. Now, one feature we added was to kind of help with this scenario. On the user permissions, we have an option under client and matters that's called auto assign to matters. If this is enabled, you will be allowed to track time for matters you're not assigned to. And if you do so, you will then be assigned to the matter as a result. So, you know, your first time entry essentially triggers you getting assigned to that matter automatically. Whereas before you'd have to go, hey, I don't see the matter, what's going on? You have to ask somebody or go in to find that matter, add yourself to it, or have somebody else do that, then go back and track time. So this sort of speeds up that scenario. I'm not seeing any questions, or did we do you have any comments, Chase, or other questions about any of the things I've talked about so far?
I don't see any questions. I did make sure to add the FAQ articles for both of those big things, the short codes and the block billing, because those are not small changes. They're definitely things you want to take advantage of, or let your timekeepers know. I'm not seeing any questions. We will probably see them afterwards, but
yeah, okay. We have a few more minutes. So I'm going to show one other thing. It has not been released fully yet, so this is unlikely to be enabled in your account. But watch out for this, or if it's interesting for you, let us know and we can switch it on. So one of those features is this reviewer option on the. You can see this in this account. You probably won't have this, but what this is we have an option under the billing and rates tab to assign one or more people as reviewers. Let's say Frederick is responsible. We have an originator here, and then Chase and Donna are reviewers. Now we can use this information in our billing workflow. For example, if I go to drafts here, I can say, look at all this stuff that Chase is a reviewer on, and they would show all the invoices that he's reviewing. It allows you to kind of build some more workflow around the invoicing process. Now we just have this one filter option and this way of tagging matters with reviewers at the moment. We're going to build in soon more sort of automated features around the invoice workflow that would allow you to take more advantage of this kind of stuff. I think I don't think I have time to show anything else. One thing I want to point to here is if you go to the question mark button here and head to documentation. Chase already pointed to this documentation site before. If you scroll down to the product announcement section here, we have monthly product announcements that might pop up in your chat windows, but you can always find them here. And so if you want to see more detail about what I talked about right now, or other things I did not cover, because there's been a lot of little things that I didn't have time for, you can browse through here and see if anything catches your eye or if you missed anything that might be helpful for you. So just wanted to highlight that option.
Always lots going on from engineering here.
All right, I think that wraps it up, Chase, doesn't it?
I think so. I don't have any more questions for us. Reminder that we are not meeting on the 3rd of the month. We're instead pushing out to, I believe, December for that state of Lien Law, like Fred was talking about at the beginning, where we have the CTO, the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, the ABCD, basically everyone from the team, the leads from each of the teams will be talking about what's going on with Lien Law, what our big plans are, accomplishments from the past year. That's something you'll absolutely want to stay tuned for. We'll send out reminders when that gets scheduled up. So we will.
The next masterclass will be then coming up in January. We don't have a topic pick yet, but we'll let you know.
We will indeed. All right, then. We will catch you all in December for that state of Lien Law. And if not, we'll chat with you soon.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chase.
Thank you.